Welcome to this edition of the Savage Nation. I'm your host, Michael Savage. Today's topic is an extremely sensitive one. Being a prominent Jewish voice in America and the world for that matter, myself, I feel that the burden is upon me to try to explain why so many Jewish people, Jews in name only, generally, by the way, not solely, seem to be so liberal.
The conventional wisdom would tell you that I am far from the perfect candidate. I am young, despite my best efforts to grow older. I am Muslim. I am a democratic socialist. And most damning of all, I refuse to apologize for any of this.
30% of the Jews in New York who voted for Mamdani. The fact is, you have to study history and understand a person named the Grand Mufti, aka good or evil. The Grand Mufti, was he good or evil? Well, I saw a History Channel show on it, and it discussed Muhammad Amin al-Husseini, the Muslim Grand Mufti of Jerusalem during World War II. And he collaborated with your friend Adolf Hitler. And at the time, the Muslims wanted to build gas chambers in the Middle East to exterminate all the Jews. Now, remember, this is before Israel was created. So if you think this big lie about Israel's the reason they're all agitated, you don't know anything about the history of Islam. It's a wake-up call to all of you. Many of you say you're not anti-Semitic. You say you're Jewish yourself. You're just anti-Zionist. What you fools should know is that Husseini wanted to exterminate the Jews of the Middle East before Israel was even created. I'm talking about 1940, 41, 42. Hitler actually worked with Husseini. Husseini got the plans for gas chambers from the Nazis and wanted to round up all the Jews in every country in the Middle East and exterminate them. We keep hearing that the Jews kicked the Palestinians off their own land and that the Palestinians are the underdogs. Well, those underdogs claim that the Jews are evil imperialists who stole the land. I've heard it all. I've analyzed it all. And I'm sure that there are some cases of land appropriation being true in the Middle East and Israel. But there are many cases of that not being true. In many cases, the Arabs gladly sold garbage land to the Jews, garbage, useless, rocky hillsides that they could not cultivate for thousands of years, but that the Jews made flowers and crops grow on. You don't know that at the same time that Israel was created, the Muslims went on the warpath in northern Africa. Does Libya ring a bell? Algeria? Look at the countries of North Africa. Jewish people lived there for 500 years, longer if you include the centuries when they were in bondage. Guess what your friends did to the Jews? They stole their land and kicked them out of the country. Around 700,000 Jews were thrown out of northern African nations. Not only was their land stolen, but also their possessions, their bank accounts, everything. They were driven out. And where did the Jews who were thrown out of northern African countries go? They went to Israel. It was the only place on earth that would take them. So who was the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem who collaborated with Hitler? Who was Husseini? Was a very wealthy man. You see, not all Palestinians are poor. He's one of the richest men among the rivaling clan in the province known as the Judean part of Palestine. But he joined the Muslim Brotherhood in 1928. This was before Israel was created. This is for you brainwashed Americans who think that the Muslims would be fine if there was no Israel. If only Israel would give up the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, and Gaza. Before Israel was even created, Husseini wanted a Nazi genocide against Jews. In 1929, this wonderful Palestinian went along with the statement, "He who kills a Jew is assured a place in the next world." You don't know anything about this. You just elected Mamdani. And now we come back to America. And we understand that there's a lot of anti-Semitism now coming from people who claim they're not anti-Semites, like Tucker Carlson, who says he's not an anti-Semite, and this character Fuentes, who it looks like a guy with an AA degree from Nowhereville, who suddenly found a place as a little stormtrooper in his own mind.
It was the Zionist Jews like Dave Rubin, like Ben Shapiro, like Dennis Prager. It was these the guys that were really controlling the media apparatus that seemed to me to be the biggest impediment. The idea that neoconservatism and Israel has nothing to do with Jewishness, Jewish identity, the Jewish religion, because clearly the state of Israel and the neocons are deeply motivated by that ethnic identity, and their allegiance to Israel proceeds from that.
Well, this is, just BLM, the new version. This is identity politics. They're engaging in identity politics. I mean, that's just so obvious to me.
What you're saying about putting aside the tribal interest for the corporate interest,
Yes.
that's absolutely the case. And that's the only way the country's going to stay together.
Exactly.
And
That's my concern.
And I absolutely agree with you. I would say, though, that the main challenge to that, a big challenge to that, is organized Jewry in America. I see Jewishness as the common denominator.
I myself have been very critical of the Jewish liberal in America. You know me from the radio years. How many times did I say to you, Hatzenberg, Katzenberg, Matzenberg, and Ratzenberg? How do we go from Einstein to Epstein in one generation? All Jews are now in the crosshairs of a new Reich. Hitler Youth movement with older inbred SA types now free to join the chorus of hate. And what is causing this? Well, in the news is the Israel-Palestine issue. It looks like the people in Gaza are the Davids and Israel is the Goliath. Israel is now Goliath under Netanyahu, and the Palestinians are the underdog and the victim. Well, is that true? You have to study history to even ask yourself the question.
I think Bibi is completely evil and completely destructive. And he's hurting the United States, and he's destroying his own country, and I think he imperils the world.
Netanyahu is not the evil man people think he is. Has he gone too far? I can't answer the question. I'm not in the IDF. I don't know what they're facing. I know that they see it a different way than I, as an American safely ensconced in California, see it, by the way. If you had had several thousand of your fellow citizens killed, the women raped, babies had their heads bashed in, and then hostages taken, you also might be like Netanyahu and say it's either them or us. To them, it's an existential problem. Either they conquer that whole area, get rid of all the terrorists called Hamas, or they'll never know another day's peace. I think it's hard to believe that we're living in the 1930s Germany, but we are. The next thing will be Kristallnacht in America, when the little Fuentes types and his followers, who would like to be the new Wehrmacht, but they don't have the guts, who wrap themselves in white supremacy, is just as dangerous as the left has been, if not more so. Right now, the American right is fragmenting in many ways. And you have to understand that there's a war going on inside the conservative movement to capture the soul of the conservative movement. And yet, somehow, the Jews are being seen as the enemy. Before I go into that, I'll tell you that I understand where some of this is coming from. When I see Epstein and Weinstein and Bernie Sanders, and I see Schumer, who I consider to be far left and Jewish in name only. So amongst all people, there are good and bad. There are good and bad in all races and in all religions and in all peoples. And I'm trying to tell you that you can't lump everybody together. You can't throw everybody into one bundle. You can't say because all Muslims are bad because Mamdani is clearly bad. I know he's a well-educated foreigner with a silver tongue. And that's how this Mamdani, the Trojan horse, got through the door. Now, I called him the Muslim Icarus. I already said he's gotten high on his own. They have to come through us. And who is the us? The mobs of weak-minded progs, radical Islamists, blubbery femmes, psycho-trans. He has no military. Castro had the army. Hitler had the brown shirts. This martinet of the campus, Mamdani, is a hollow little boy screaming in his mama's puppet show of hate. And I say, never fear him, scorn him. You know, when I grew up, I had to look at role models because I came from a poor family and I didn't want to be poor. I wanted to kind of make it in America. And I wanted to give something to America to make it. I knew I had to do something to make it in America. I knew how to give something to be something. I remember JFK gave a speech where he said, oh, I was 22 years old or something. JFK said, ask not what your country could do for you, but what you can do for your country. When I heard that speech from Kennedy, something like steel got into my spine. And I said, by God, I'm going to go out and do some good things for my country. I want my country to love me. I want my people to be represented by good things, not by the Harvey, the bad things. Stay tuned. The Savage Nation will be right back.